All right, let's talk about thesis development and writing really great introduction paragraphs. We'll start with what we've been talking to death, but still important, this idea of the defensible thesis, because we want to get that point on the exam. We want to get proficiency and masteries in class. So just a few reminders that a good thesis statement is going to be defensible, meaning that it can be argued, agreed with, or disagreed. It's on task, meaning that it fits whatever the prompt is asking you to do, and that it is specific. So it's not too vague, it's not too general. And then that it's establishing some sort of line of reasoning with rhetorical analysis, for sure, outlining those choices that you're going to be analyzing. With argument or synthesis, it might be outlining the main points that you're going to make, okay? This should always come at the end of your introduction paragraph. If it shows up elsewhere, you will still get the point. But when we're talking about persuasive technique, I guess what I would say is the reader is anticipating it at the end of the introduction before you kind of branch out into the overall argument. So let's talk about how we kind of structuralize and wrap our brain around what that looks like. So this is called the inverted method for introduction writing, and you'll notice it's an inverted triangle, okay? And the reason it is because the best way to start an introduction is to start broad and narrow and narrow and narrow until you get to your thesis and the line of reasoning, which is in the red on the screen. So when we say start broad, one kind of go-to thing that I recommend is connecting to big ideas. So big ideas are, those universal truths, values that people hold, like truth, honesty, friendship, loyalty. You can always start with a general statement about a related big idea, and your reader can connect with that. The reason those are called big ideas or universal ideas is because these abstract things are experienced by everyone. So if I start an essay talking about the value of honesty, that's something that many people can relate to. If I start talking about legacy and leaving behind a good reputation and things like that, that's something that other people care about too. So when I start there, I'm immediately engaging my audience in something that they can connect with. So that's what I mean by starting broad. From there is where we want to go into that yellow and start narrowing our focus. Link that broad context to the rhetorical situation that you're going to be writing about. In rhetorical analysis, that might be connecting to the context of the passage and the situation and that. If you're talking about synthesis or argument, it might be taking something like honesty and kind of breaking it down to the more specific task that the essay is providing you. It's just, like I said, that bridge that's created between this really big abstract idea and the argument that you're going to make. It's kind of, I guess I'm saying narrowing your focus, but it's really just a careful transition into your argument, which is the red triangle, which is saying present your thesis and line of reasoning. So let's look at an example. So if I was doing a rhetorical analysis on Neil Armstrong's eulogy, the big idea that I would pick out is legacy. Multiple times, and eulogies in general often are talking about a person's legacy, what they're leaving behind, what they're remembered for, what they're loved for, okay? So I could start off with a sentence along the lines of, a lot of us don't have a chance to really think about the legacy we're going to leave behind, period. That's something that other people can relate to. It's something they haven't thought of or they do think about, and so there is that point of connection. Then I have a few notes on the transition, what contextual information is important to my rhetorical analysis. So I have the date that it was given, who gave it, and who Neil Armstrong was. These are all things that I would probably mention as I transition from this big idea of legacy to an analytic thesis, which I have in the red triangle, the purpose, and then the rhetorical choices that are made in the paragraph. So that's kind of my big picture structure. I start out really big with this idea of legacy, and I'm going to narrow and narrow and narrow until I get to the last thing, which is my analytic thesis statement for a rhetorical analysis. So let's look at what that actually looks like. Here is a sample of it written out. what we leave behind, or our legacy, is shaped by the actions we take in life, the risks, the obstacles, and the achievements. Some achieve such greatness in life that it becomes irrevocably tied to their legacy. Such is the case with Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. On December 13, 2012, Eugene Cernan eulogized his friend Armstrong. To celebrate the astronaut's accomplishments, Cernan questions his own ability to deliver a good enough eulogy, quotes the departed, and directly addresses Armstrong. So I've kind of color-coded this to match the triangle on previous slides, and you'll see I start out broad. This idea of legacy. What we leave behind, or our legacy, is shaped by the actions we take in life, the risks, the obstacles, the achievements. I've started with a general statement about legacy that other people can connect and understand with. Then I start transitioning by referring to what I said about legacy. I say some achieve such greatness in life that it becomes irrevocably tied to their legacy. Such is the case with Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. There I am narrowing the focus. I started by talking about risks, obstacles, and achievements. Now I've narrowed it to the achievements of Neil Armstrong. And then I say on December 13th, 2012, Eugene Cernan eulogized his friend Armstrong. I'm providing that specific context. Who's talking? When was he talking? And what is that rhetorical situation? And then I end with my thesis statement. To celebrate the astronaut's accomplishments, Cernan questions his own ability to deliver a good enough eulogy, quotes the departed, and directly addresses Armstrong. So you'll see it's using that inverted method. Start broad, narrow it down. Now, that said, that was for a rhetorical analysis, but this same structure works for argument. It works for synthesis. It's just this concept that you start with something universal, something that people can connect with, something that people understand, narrow it for whatever rhetorical situation you're writing for, and then present a thesis and line of reasoning at the end.